Today on ATP, Palestine. Was it always an Arab country? The answer might surprise you. Therefore, stay tuned today for the fact from fiction. Well, welcome again, everyone. As always, I'm your host, Ed Walsh, here at Appointed to Promote, where, as always, I cover for you current events via the biblical lens. And where today? It is now going to be part 3 in my new series titled Israel versus Palestine, Separating Fact from Fiction, where it was in part 1, where I covered what is Palestine and when did it become a nation? And in part 2, I provided fact from fiction regarding the topic. Does Israel have a claim to the land they call home? And of which you've not yet seen either of those two series, I've left a link up above for you, or you can find a link in the description box of this episode to get yourself caught up. And let's get into it right away by jumping into part 3. I will provide fact from fiction on the all too popular narrative today. Palestine has always been an Arab country. But now, come the facts. For Palestine was not an Arab country, and the events and words of history, as I will show you today, back it up. For it was the Hebrews, aka the Jewish people, and not the Palestinians, who entered the land of Israel in around 1300 BC. And it was the Ottoman Empire, which was an Islamic state that ruled over large parts of the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe over 600 years, stretching from the 14th to 20th centuries. And it was founded by Turkish tribes in Anatolia, otherwise then known as Asia Minor, around 1300 AD, of which the empire's name comes from Osman I, the nomadic Turkmen chief who established the dynasty. Now, the term Palestine was used to describe the region south of Syria, and especially that of southern Syria, in which the Ottomans and Arabs lived during this period. Yet again, it was referred to as southern Syria and not Palestine, for there never was a sovereign state of Palestine that existed in the area. But on November the 2nd of 2017, Britain issued the all-important Balfour Declaration. And now many today state that the Balfour Declaration did not give the Jews a right to a homeland in Palestine. But my friends out there watching, that's exactly what it did. For the Balfour Declaration was a public statement issued by the British government during the First World War in 1917, announcing its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, of which it said, and I quote, "His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country." Seems pretty definitive to me. As well, it was this declaration that was key in paving the way for the eventual establishment of the modern nation of Israel in 1948. Now fast forward 4 years into the life of this declaration, and in 1921, suddenly the British Mandate surprisingly gave away 77% of the land originally designated for the Jewish state by dividing the region in two. For east of the Jordan River was what became known as the Emirate of Transjordan, as this was the first time in modern history that a Palestinian region became a unified political entity. And if you think about it, in other words, this could be known as the real two-state solution world leaders speak of wanting today. And as for the British Mandate's reasons for doing so, well, it was done to appease large Arab populations and to create stability in the region, as well as to mitigate the growing Arab unrest against Jewish immigration. Yeah, right. Yet in the end, the remaining 23% west of the Jordan River would become the future Jewish state, that being Israel 27 years later. Meanwhile, the nation then known as Transjordan eventually simply became renamed Jordan in 1946. So even despite this divide, my friends, you can now see that the Balfour Declaration was instrumental in giving the Jews the right to a homeland in the Palestinian region, as opposed to what the liars, deceivers, and media elites would lead you to believe today. Therefore, I now hope you can see the narrative that Palestine has always been an Arab country is pure fiction. And with that said, let me give you a few key examples, as said in their own words, as to where Palestinians truly come from. For it was the first Congress of Muslim Christian Association in 1919 which adopted the following resolution. We consider Palestine as part of Arab Syria, as it has never been separated from it at any time. We next fast forward ahead to the year 1937, when Arab leader Aouni Bey Abdul Hadi told the Peel Commission, which ultimately suggested the partition of Palestine, there is no such country as Palestine. Palestine is a term the Zionists invented. There is no Palestine in the Bible. Our country was for centuries part of Syria. Elsewhere was distinguished Arab-American historian Philip Hitti, who testified against partition in 1946 when saying, "There is no such thing as Palestine in history, absolutely not." And a few years later, it was Ahmed Shakiri, later the chairman of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, who told the Security Council, "It is common knowledge that Palestine is nothing but southern Syria." And my friends, again, by just using their very own words, I don't think I could make it any clearer. And let us not forget that it was Israel who was reborn in a single day in May of 1948, and as fulfilled by the prophecy given to us in the book of Isaiah. Who has ever seen anything as strange as this? Who ever heard of such a thing? Has a nation ever been born in a single day? Has a country ever come forth in a mere moment? But by the time Jerusalem birth pains begin, her children will be born. So it was the prophecies of God which were fulfilled, all while God continued to prove his faithfulness to his promise, in thus making his nation one day great, and in so doing while also personally ruling and reigning with them from the seat of David in Jerusalem during the future millennial kingdom. And my friends, let me also emphasize for all of you, the reason we see all of this all-out anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, which has been on display all throughout history, is because it is a spiritual battle in the heavenlies between good and evil. And it is Satan himself who is, yes, pun intended, hell-bent on destroying the Jewish people and the nation of Israel, while preventing God from doing all he can in fulfilling his covenantal promise. And why? Well, it's simple. Because Satan hates God, and therefore Satan hates anything that God loves. And my friends, that even includes you. However, if you have read the good book to its conclusion, you know that it will be the Jewish King Jesus Christ himself who will put an end to the final attempted mutiny by his once greatest angel, and not only by fulfilling his promises to his covenant people, the Jews, but to all of those, Jew or Gentile alike, with which God calls his own. And so, my friends, I hope again you have learned something today in part 3 about Palestine's false claim in always being an Arab country, and just seen exactly how important the Balfour Declaration was in establishing a future homeland for the Jewish people. And what is your job after seeing this? Well, it's not to keep it to yourself, but rather it is to go out and share the truth with others. For my friends, We've all got a God to serve, and his name is Jesus Christ, the Jewish King. And with that said, hey, let me give you a preview for my next episode in the series, which will be part 4, of which again, I can assure you, you will not want to miss when I provide fact from fiction on the topic. Israel stole the land of Palestine in 1948 and brought a genocide along with it. And therefore, my friends, a loaded topic of which you cannot afford to miss the fact from fiction on this one. So again, hey, if you like the program today, new or not, please do me a favor, comment, like, and subscribe so I can get this truth out to the masses. And so as I close, let me do so, as I often do, by providing you my signature Bible verse of the channel as well as my life, which comes to us from the book of Colossians chapter 2 and verse 8, which simply tells us, "See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the tradition of men, according to the elementary principles of the world, rather than according to Christ." And so with that said, my friends, I thank you for watching today, and until I see you next time, God bless.